Hi, everybody. Chief Meteorologist Chris Justice here with you. Coming up on another storm system coming our way. Please let me know where you're watching from. I want to get this live broadcast going here with a morning update. I've got new information here for you that I want to let you know about. Let me know this connection's coming through loud and clear wherever you're watching from right now, and we'll get this conversation going as a few more of you join on here. We've got a lot to talk about here, including winter storm watches being issued for many areas in the Deep South. This is about to get into the 48-hour time frame of this system arriving. Here we are Wednesday morning. This will begin on Friday morning for many areas, and it will continue to be an issue as we move on through those time frames. So let me know where you're watching from right now, and let's just continue this conversation as we move forward here, because a lot going on, including the timing and the areas that are going to see more impacts out of this. If you're new to this channel, please consider going ahead and subscribing to the notifications, this channel, wherever you're watching from. WYFF4 is your place to go to keep you posted on what's going on, all things weather. And in fact, as I look at the new watches, they have stretched all the way from winter storm warnings in Texas and Arkansas. These are time-based warnings, so they're from about 36 hours out from the storm striking. So that means that most of the Carolinas here will get the opportunity to get under a winter storm watch as we go into the rest of today. So again, let me know where you're watching from right now. Let me know that this connection is coming through loud and clear. And we'll get this conversation going, and I'll be able to answer your questions here. I got a brand new computer model here for you that's going to help answer a lot of the questions that you may have across the area. So what's new in your town? Well, we've got a new model that's trying to trend in some snow, at least on the beginning of this thing. It's that transition to ice and when it occurs that is really going to be the whole key to the majority of this ball game here. So let's get right to what's going on right now. You can see it at the bottom of my screen here. The areas that are at risk have gone up. This is for the possibility of the ground being covered, basically. It'd be a 90% chance in the northern part of the upstate. The I-85 corridor north has a 70% chance. All the way as far south as Anderson, Greenwood, Lawrence is about a 60% chance of the ground being covered by something, whether it be ice or snow. About an inch would cover those areas, which with the ground being frozen would mean that those impacts would begin almost immediately. This is for the chance of ice. It sits more like a 30 to 40% chance for a tenth of an inch. A glaze goes up higher to 50-60% chance across the I-85 corridor south. Okay, I've got two most reliable computer models, the high-resolution models, where we're watching at right now. And as I look at that moving forward here, we're going to be watching that closely. These high-resolution models are kind of in their wheelhouse at this point. The high-res, the HRR, only goes out 48 hours. So we get to Friday morning. Woof, this is a big winter storm. Now, this is as far as it gets, but we can pause it here and kind of pontificate on the setup. Notice the rain, snow, or the ice snow line is at I-20. And it's moving toward Atlanta, which means Atlanta would be right there on that snow ice line, which would be equivalent to somewhere in here from Augusta to Greenwood and Abbeville, which would put the upstate and western North Carolina initially on this big snow swath. That's a big snow. And folks, it's putting down some pretty good totals in its wake. If you look at the snow totals here, we are looking at that putting down, let me flip it back to the 12Z model and roll it forward here. I mean, that's a foot of snow back toward Arkansas and Texas, okay? So it's certainly got a lot to go on. So let's look closer at the most reliable computer models as it stands right now. And right now I'm looking at the NAM model. And the NAM model is still refreshing. Let me see how far we've got. We've got it. Okay, so the NAM model goes out 60 hours versus 48. So we get a little bit more juice with this model. It shows going into Friday morning, same story, about 7 a.m. There's some pockets of some snow and sleet in the Atlanta metro area, and then that starts to move in at about 8 a.m., 9 a.m. Most of northeast Georgia is seeing some snow. Notice that ice lines along I-20, the snow lines north of I-20, and then by 11 o'clock, Anderson, Greenwood starting to see some snow. But I do want to caution you here on this early onset. We do tend to sometimes get the possibility of dry, cold air. It's just so dry how cold that air is. And that leads to us being so dry that some of this takes some time to evaporate. So it may be mid-morning, it may be lunchtime before you start to see the snow, but it's coming. And here we are at lunchtime around 12 o'clock. We got heavy snow north of 85. We've got sleet. Would be this purple. The pink would be freezing rain. So a wintry mix across the southern part of the upstate. And here we are at 4 p.m. You've got freezing rain now taking over in the western parts of the upstate for Clemson and Anderson. Greenville South seeing freezing rain. Snow is in Spartanburg. And now freezing rain is back in the picture according to this high-resolution NAM model. Okay, freezing rain goes all the way up to I-40 in the solution. So ice, unfortunately, as we've been saying, is going to be a component to this conversation, okay? So I don't think we leave this thing unscathed without some semblance of an ice storm here, and that looks to go all the way up to the north with the track of the low on this high-resolution model. Now, this is not gospel, it's just what one model's saying. Let's look at what that is saying for totals. So sleet, that would put about an inch of sleet on the ground. So again, the ground's covered in white. It's got something, a substance to cling to. How about snowfall in this solution? It would be about a half an inch of snow, but more like an inch of sleet. But here's the real deal with that. It's got ice showing up here in these areas, and we've got to watch that. So that's the high-resolution NAM model. This is the same model, but gets us out a little bit further into time. So same story, snow's arriving here mid-morning through lunchtime on Friday, changes to freezing rain on this NAM model through the afternoon hours. Freezing rain and sleet are a problem through the rest of that morning, the rest of that evening and afternoon. So sleet would be that pink, purple would actually be the freezing rain. And there it is. It's out of here by 1 a.m. So that's a quick exit. So a faster mover with a little bit less moisture showing up on our high resolution models. So what would that say for totals? Snow on this high resolution NAM model would paint about 1 to 3 inches of snow, 1 around I-85 north, with about 2 to 4 across western North Carolina. And then the sleet being a problem in conjunction with this ice. This shows a half an inch of ice. And for perspective, a tenth of an inch of ice would make roads slick. A quarter of an inch of ice would make roads impassable. When you get to a half an inch of ice, that's when tree limbs and power lines become an issue. And this could be more of an ice storm according to these more recent high resolution models, okay? When I look at the snow totals on the NAM, this NAM model, it's got generally a trace to an inch south of 85, which is fairly close to my forecast. I've got 1 to 2 inches in these areas. I've got 2 to 4 inches north of 85, which, as you can see, kind of aligns with that 2 inches in Greenville, with 3 to 4 in Travelers Rest, Northern Pickens, and Oconee County. And then I've got 4 to 8 for the mountains. This has 3 in Rutherfordton. It's got about 6 to 8 in the high country. So that adds up according to that NAM model, but it also wants to throw in here a good bit of freezing rain, 6/10 of an inch for northeast Georgia, 1/4 of an inch to a half an inch in the upstate. What do the GFS models say? Let's see if we've got the new 12Z coming in. We have the latest overnight run of the Canadian. It shows snow breaking out first through lunchtime, then snow, sleet mixing in during the afternoon, late afternoon, early evening, and then it's got some ice and sleet mixing in through the rest of the evening on Friday. Then the ice takes over. The ice looks to take over in the late evening hours. I'm thinking 7, 8, 9 o'clock, and that's when ice would begin to be a problem. And this GFS model, unfortunately, shows quite a bit of ice, and it's the track of this low. We've got to watch it. Depending on where it tracks, if it's a little bit further south, we get more snow. If it's a little bit further north, we get more ice, and that will determine your totals. The more ice you get, the less snow you're going to get. The less ice, the more snow. Here we are going into Sunday. It's still cold, and that's what's going on. How about the totals? Well, the GFS has not really backed off. It's got about 1 to 2 inches of snow south of 85. It's got about 2 to 4 inches north of 85, and then anywhere from about 3 to 6, and then up to 8, 9, 10 inches in the higher country of North Carolina. Let's do something here. Let's not just look at one deterministic model. Let's look at all of the GFS models averaged together. That's a much better way of forecasting snow. Let's scrub that through. This is 30 different runs of the GFS averaged together, and you see it here, about 2 to 4 inches in the upstate, about 4 to 8 in the mountains. So an average of it still shows what my forecast is. My forecast has remained unchanged. I think south of 85, whether it's sleet or snow, you're going to get something covering the ground, maybe as little as a trace to an inch, but you could get up to 2 inches. North of 85, that's I-85 north through Greenville, Spartanburg, I think you'll get 2 inches of something, probably be some snow and some ice. You could get up to 4 inches if you don't get ice, but unfortunately, looks like you're going to get a glaze of ice on top of all that throughout the day on Friday. So the average of the GFS shows quite a bit of snow for all of us. All right, European, what does it say? It says snow arrives again midday. That snow continues through about lunchtime. This European wall should show more snow, less ice, but also a little bit less moisture with that. It's gone, like most of the other models here, by 4 a.m. or so. Nothing is falling when you wake up on Saturday morning. It wants to paint 2.5 inches in Greenville, in Anderson, 3 inches in the northern part of the upstate. It's got 2 to 5 inches across western North Carolina. Well, what are all the average of the models of the European say? Right there in line. I mean, the GFS and the European model are almost identical. They've got 2 to 4 inches in the upstate. They've got about 4, let's call it 3 inches in the foothills like Rutherfordton, up to 4 or 5 inches in the mountains with locally higher amounts. So that's the average of all 51 different runs of the European model. Here's the one before that. You can see it hasn't really changed much, and the one before that. So, I mean, they're not changing a lot. And, you know, the tendency is, and in a meteorologist, is to swing with the every deterministic run of the models. I don't do that, folks. I remain steady. I make a first call, and I remain steady. I make steady moves. And what I'm seeing in the models is, yes, the high-resolution models are trying to sling in more ice. That is a tendency that they try to do quite a bit, okay? They're a little more ice-prone. They don't handle terrain very well, and terrain is what dictates our cold air, okay? So, you know, you got to watch it. You got to kind of have a history here. And this is my 13th winter forecasting for WYFF4 on TV. This would be my 20th forecasting somewhere in the Carolinas on TV. And I got to tell you, I mean, the situation here is pretty textbook. It's a Miller A low. We're going to have snow. We're going to have ice. And honestly, anybody that can tell you exactly how much you're going to have, it's not true. You just don't know yet. But we're almost 48 hours at, and we do have access to those high-resolution models, and those will start to give us a better picture. But the idea to say, no, it's not going to happen, or it's going to be all ice now, not really. I still think we're going to see some snow, but I do think we're going to see some ice mixed in with it. And to reiterate that, all of our 51 different runs of the European, I don't even see one here. Last night I saw one that was missing, but every single one, all 51 runs of the European model here paint some snow accumulating across the GSP area. Some of them are 6 inches, some of them are 2.5. If you average them out, look down here at the bottom. The blue color is control, which means that's the one model that you see shared around on Facebook. That's what's called a deterministic run. That's what somebody can look up, you know, as an amateur meteorologist, right? What I can look up is the mean, the average of all 51 different runs. If I see that these two are in lockstep, I'm a happy meteorologist, right? That means the model is behaving, it's got some accuracy to it, and right now the control and the average are right there locked in place. I've got 3 inches at GSP on the European average. I've got 3 inches on the average of all 51 different runs of the GSP model, okay? So, yeah, it's steady. How about the GFS model? Well, looking at it, again, they're in lockstep. There's not much of a big swing. Early on, you saw huge swings. The deterministic would be way up here. The average would be down here. Well, no, the average is right there with the model. The control shows 4. The mean or the average of all these GFS models wants to show 3.75. So out of 31 different varieties of the GFS, there's not one that indicates no snow across GSP. All of them do, okay? And to show you highs and how this is going to impact, I picked GSP from the pot here. Atlanta, Charlotte, anywhere in the south, you can kind of pick your town and have a similar temperature. It's just so cold. We're down to 19 tomorrow morning and then up to 43. Then we start Friday morning at 23. That's a lot of cold, dry air that's going to have to rise up to that 33, 34 degree mark, and that's when we'll start to get the snow. But, it's going to be 41 at some point on Saturday. Now, that does not account for a frozen covered ground, which means there will be some melting. But look at the low Sunday morning. It's 19. So I think church commutes are going to be a concern. And honestly, if we get the kind of accumulation I'm seeing, I don't see how buses run on rural roads on Monday, because look at even if you get some melting at 38 to 40 degrees. It won't be much, but there certainly would make some ground on those big roads. I think by the time you get to Monday morning, a 23 degree low is going to refreeze everything, and you're going to have some black ice that could honestly be worse than some of the roads on some of these days, because it refreezes as ice instead of kind of that slushy mess. Does that make sense? So that's the way things are shaping up right now. One thing's for sure, it looks like we're going to be dealing with an ice storm in many areas. It looks like it's ice. It looks like it's snow. It looks like it's both, okay? So we could have both of those going our way. And we're going to be watching that out for you. It looks like the chat's not wanting to work. But hey, if you're new to this channel, if you're watching on WYFF, if you're watching on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you're watching from, please consider liking this video, subscribe, turn on notifications. It's the best way that you can stay up to date with what's going to happen in your town. We will continue to keep you posted around the clock, because as we've mentioned many, many times, this is a system that will change many times. It's just the nature of the beast. You can't just tune in 4 days before and then check back in the day of. Simply put, a high-impact winter storm is still on the way Friday. It looks like it's going to be ice and snow. For your town, it could be ice or snow, or ice and snow. Does that make sense? But it's going to cover the ground. It's going to impact your ability to travel safely, beginning sometime as early as mid-morning on Friday, but more likely Friday afternoon, and it will continue to get worse into Friday evening. That's the peak of the storm. After midnight, this thing's simmering down, and we are going to wonder how the roads will be on Saturday morning, because then the precipitation is done. It's just a matter about getting out there and doing it. So, folks, I truly appreciate your support here on these channels. It is a gift to do what I love here, and I love this platform that's in addition to TV, that we can connect and I can answer your questions and be able to provide you with answers that are a little bit more in depth than I can do on a 4-minute broadcast on TV. That said, on TV today, on WYFF News 4 at noon, Perella and Griffin will have the latest on the new totals that are coming in, the winter storm watch that is impending for the area, and then later today at 4, 5, 6, and 11 o'clock, I'll have the latest on those updates for you. So hope you'll tune in wherever it is you are watching right now. So thank you for tuning in. And again, if you don't subscribe to this particular channel, do us the favor of subscribing to WYFF4, subscribe to my channel, and we will keep you up to date. Folks, more of these lives coming your way later today. Again, I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for your trust when it comes to hurricanes, severe weather, and of course, wintry weather here. This is the first that we've had, and get this, by the time we get it on Friday, 1,090 days. That's the longest stretch of no wintry weather we've had in the Carolinas, and it's about to end